Saying goodbye to Nagesh is always such a long, drawn affair. But his Google story is actually a great lead-in into our next panel, talking about the Internet of Things, talking about your kettle telling you where you can go to have it recycled or to have its filament changed. We've been talking about Retail 2020, we've been talking about Retail 2018. Our next panel is going to look at Retail 2030. Let's really look at the future of retail in this country, internationally, and more importantly, in the hands of the consumers that you're going to be trying to reach. So, to talk about empowering retailers, to talk about digital disruption, and the fourth industrial revolution, I'd like to call on stage Director and Country Head Dynamics for Microsoft India, Samik Roy.
Good afternoon. So the theme of the session here is about having a telescopic view towards retail. And I've done this presentation, or I've spoken on this theme a couple of times before. And every time I spoke, the feedback that I got is, the telescope of Microsoft seems to be too powerful. You show us a different galaxy, you show us a different world. And it's difficult to connect to it, because we talk about augmented reality, we talk about how HoloLens is going to impact retail, etc. So for today, I dropped the telescope and I got in a binocular. Okay, but they are strong binoculars. So today we'll be talking about looking at the horizon rather than looking at way distant beyond it. The way I have put up the presentation is we will start with a short video, which I will talk you through. It's a very short 1.5-minute video. We'll talk a little bit for about 5 minutes about what's happening in this industry. Then we'll spend 5 minutes about what are the kinds of solutions which you can implement to bring in a lot of digital transformation. And then we will end with a video as well. So the whole thing will take about 17 to 20 minutes for me to finish, and then we will have the panel discussion. So let me start. So let me see. So this is where two people have planned a holiday to Italy. And one of the friends just texted the other person on what she has bought. So now this lady asks Cortana, which is the Microsoft digital assistant, on what can she buy. And then she gets a couple of options which come in from an app of a particular store. The app fixes an appointment for her, and now she's walking into the store. So just keep watching the video. This is where the store assistant comes to know that she has come in, and already what are the kinds of dresses that she wants to choose for today. She tries the different kind of dresses, and as she is doing it, she can buy the dresses, or she can ask somebody to help her with different kinds which she wants to try out. Now while she buys there, the storekeeper comes to know that this particular SKU is selling fast and it might be out of stock, and prompts the person from actually buying or ordering more of this stock so that the consumers can come and buy more. And then it gets uploaded and goes back to a friend, and they go for a holiday. Now I don't know whether you relate to it or no, I definitely relate to it, because every time in my household we go for a holiday, one of the reasons I fear is that the cost of shopping always is more than the cost of the holiday. Okay? And the holiday can get repeated, and shopping also gets repeated. So I do relate to it. So what happened? Okay? Now let's come and talk about what's happening in the industry, and then we will go back to the video. The industry is going through a massive transformation, and we are calling it the digital transformation. Everybody is talking about it. We in the industry coined this as the fourth revolution. And why do we call it an industrial revolution? It's because it is changing the way the consumers are behaving. It is changing the customer's expectations, or in the retail world, the consumer's expectations. It's forcing organizations to think differently, to change their processes, or to emerge as very, very different organizations. Let's take a few examples. How many of you today will call a yellow top, black cab if you have to go somewhere? You almost don't see it. But you almost don't see it, correct? Okay, one of the few ones. What do? You go to your mobile phone, you click on an app which is either Uber or Ola. I don't advertise for any of them, okay? The car comes to you, you decide on which car. The car, once you sit in the car, it tells you how much time it will take to reach the destination. You reach the destination, the trip finishes, you give a feedback on how good was your trip, and you pay. And the whole process is cashless and it's paperless. That's digital transformation, correct? But it's not only that we are looking at this as a digital transformation, but look what it has done to the industry. It has changed your behavior. And it's disrupted, or it's probably finished all the organizations which used to provide a cab service before. And that's the digital disruption we are talking about. So any revolution is when it changes the entire way of doing things. And today, every organization is going through the digital disruption. Let's come back to what is it doing in retail. And this is a very, very vast topic, but in 15 minutes I can only cover a little bit of it. There are two elements which I'll talk about a lot today. The first is this online and offline or in-store divide. So if you go back a couple of years, we had these two distinct kind of stores or retail operations. One was the traditional in-store, where people like our parents, our grandparents, and some of us would buy a lot from, and we still buy. And then there was this entire e-commerce online stores, where some of us buy, but definitely the next generation goes there first before they even go to the in-store. And we thought that the two are completely separate. The ways of buying, the ways of consumer behavior were completely separate. But that's not the scene today, and we call it the digital store in Microsoft. We don't call it the online and the offline store. And why is this different? It's different because, and somebody spoke about it in the previous panel, you are the same organization, and you have a consumer. When the consumer comes into your online store, there are no timings. It's not a 10 to 8 shop. It's a 24/7 into 365 shop. You can go and look at what brand you want to buy. What have people who have consumed the brand spoken about it? Okay? Whether you have a particular discount, how much time will it take to deliver it at your doorstep? And you can even change it, okay, if you don't like it. But when the same consumer goes to an in-store, where there is a person interacting with this particular consumer, which is the best time you can have. The best selling time is when a seller is in front of a customer or a consumer and can influence them. You're not able to give that same kind of service. And I'll give you a lot of examples. So how do you bridge this divide? That's very important. The second aspect of it is empowering all the employees to deliver. Okay? Again, if you go back to the revolutions, the first revolution was about the steam. Okay? That's when machinery came in. That's when people moved from manual work to machines, and the machines were driven by steams. The second revolution is when electricity came in. So the machines became bigger and they became faster. The third revolution is when IT came into space, when we got in processors and we started automating processes to make things faster. We brought in the whole era of productivity. And the fourth resolution is taking productivity to a higher level, where we talk about automating things faster and everybody being more and more productive. And that cannot happen if the employees in the store or online or people interacting with the consumer are empowered to do that. And we'll talk a little bit about the same. Then we talk about data. Okay? Now, big data, artificial intelligence, and analytics is definitely what's going to drive everything. We have been talking about data since many years. We had data warehouses. We had accumulated huge amount of data. But the data never became actionable. And even if it was actionable, the discussion was whether it is preventive, whether it is proactive, or whether it is post-operative. And most of the data being used was post-operative. But today we are talking about being proactive and being preventive. I think that kettle example was a very good example, and that's a reality today. Okay? And then is how do you basically become more and more innovative by using all of this? And it's not that simple because all of this has a lot of interaction and integration, and all of this is happening at the real time. Okay? So let me come to what I was talking about, is bridging the gap of online and in-store. And I'll give you an example by screenshots and how can technology help you to do it. This is the best binocular I could talk about rather than talking about augmented reality. So this is your online. Whenever you want to go and shop, okay, you basically go into what we call as that category. If you want to buy a mixer and a juicer, you go into kitchen appliances. If you want to buy a washing machine, you go into home appliances. If you want to buy clothes of a particular kind, you go into that particular category, correct? In the store, you basically go to that particular division or that particular department. So you're physically doing it. But why can't the store today have a particular wall there or a particular digital wall where you can do the same thing and you can actually go into the same things that you can do out online? So in-store, online, same consumer, same kinds of products, but you are giving the same kind of an experience. Because the experience of online is much, much higher and better. And I heard somebody talking about that that's what the data also says. Now let's move to the next level. The person decides to buy something or look for something. The moment you decide to look for something, it will immediately give you options of what other things can you buy. Correct? All of you would have noticed that. When you go to an in-store, you don't get the option of what other things can you buy, what accessories can you buy. You are left to the fact that you always keep onions and potatoes next to each other because data says when you buy onions, you also buy potatoes, right? You keep Baby Johnson lotion and diapers together because if one is picking up that, the other person is also picking up that. But there is nothing to assist you. But today, inside the store, you can have somebody assist you physically out there having this particular piece of information. We call these people not salespeople. We call these people as commerce agents because they can be standing next to you to do this exactly the way you do it while you're online. The third aspect of it is your history. When you go into online, you click on yourself, you click on your account, you get the entire history. Your previous purchases, what was delivered, what was the discount which you got, whether there was something returned or no. When you go to the store, the person you are interacting with does not know your history. Okay? But today you can do that because the same application can enable on your tablet or on your phone or any kind of a device that same particular piece of information. So here you have brought up a piece of information about this customer and you have all that particular pieces of information which you can get, which the consumer can get when you're getting online. The last point is the shopping experience. Out there you buy, you swipe a card or you pay through a Paytm or you go directly into your debit account and you basically transfer the money. But in the store, you go and stand in a particular line, correct? But why have that line? Why have a physical box there? Because a person can actually do this entire transaction from a phone or a tablet. Very simple. Okay. Now let's look at the next aspect, which is about empowering employees. When you go to the store online, you can look at competition. You can look at if this product is offering these features and functions, what is the other product offering as features and functions? What is the difference between them? And which one should I buy? But when you come to the store, you basically don't have that experience. Why? Because the person most of the time will not have that answer. And that's where empowerment comes, is how do we basically empower these people at our store to have that product information, to have that consumer information, to have that customer information, to bridge the gap and bring a better consumer experience. Because what the future will hold for us, the people who will stay in the future are people who will have and give a better consumer experience. And then this is about the fact that when you're shopping, you can give more options to the particular person. Finally, there are consumers and there are customers in India who are doing this. This is just a list of some of our customers. We today have about 14,000 stores which are rolling out with similar kind of applications. And all of them are not doing the same thing. You could see that I've broken it down into fashion and retail, mass merchandise, hypermarkets, supermarkets, and so on. And these are all using the set of products that we basically put in for retail. And all of the customers are doing different kinds of automation. So somebody has done retail automation, somebody has done everything from manufacturing to retail, somebody like Samsung has done everything in distribution. That means once the manufacturing is done, your secondary sales, your tertiary sales, and your retail is all on Dynamics. So in short, what the solution offers is everything from understanding the customer, and all of you would know that LinkedIn is acquired and owned by Microsoft, to Adobe. If you're talking about digital transformation, Adobe is known as one of the most well-known digital automation marketing applications, where you take the entire journey from an anonymous person to a customer walking into a shop, whether it's an online store or it's an on-premise store. And then D365, which is our ERP and CRM together, combined with Office 365, chatbots, IoTs, and all of this runs on a platform called Azure. All of this is on the cloud, and all of this is on the India data center. With that, my last 1-minute video.
And in-store. To them, it's the same company. Why should it be different? Why can't I go online and check and see if a product is available in my local store? Why can't I buy something online and pick it up at the store on my way home? And the truth is, they're right. But in the past, technology has limited retailers' ability to deliver this type of connected experience. With Microsoft Dynamics 365, we've made it even easier for retailers to deliver a seamless commerce experience across all customer touchpoints, whether they're switching back and forth between their laptop and their tablet, or they're coming into the store to pick up a product that they purchased on their phone.
With the design and architecture of Dynamics 365, retailers have a single version of truth across products, promotion, customers, and orders that enables many of these cross-channel capabilities consumers demand. Dynamics 365 incorporates the unified commerce runtime, enabling a single code base that powers all channels and a seamless retail experience across the entire shopping journey. And when customers do come into the store, our mobile-enabled solution can give employees a 360-degree view of that customer. For instance, what items they have previously purchased or what support issues they've had in the past.
It empowers retail teams with the information they need at the right time, irrelevant of channel, to provide customer service that is truly world-class.
With that, I end my presentation, and I hope that the use of binocular brought it more to today's reality and looking at the horizon than looking at a different galaxy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samik. Well, from looking forward to the next 10 years, let's look back a little and see how the past has shaped the future. And to talk about that, I'd like to call on stage the Senior Partner and Director, Asia Pacific Leader, Consumer and Retail Practice for the Boston Consulting Group, Abhik Singhi.
Okay. 922337203685477580. Any guesses as what this is?
Your salary last year?
I wish. So how many people have heard the story about the second half of the chessboard? Indian king played chess, lost to somebody. The person asked, you give me 1 grain of rice for the first set, 2 for the next, 4 for the next. So 2 to the power of 63 is the number that you see right at the top. And why am I talking about this humongous number, 9 million trillion, is because we are really in the second half of the chessboard today, which is technologies of all kinds, forms and fashion are actually coming together in order to provide consumers, customers, retailers a chance to really make things happen differently than what they have been ever in the past. The one differing characteristic of the second half of the chessboard is the first half of the chessboard actually looks relatively linear. All of us can live with the number 2 billion. We understand what that means. But if you even try to think about the number at the bottom, which is the 9 million trillion or 9 quintillion, the mind starts boggling. And that's what's really happening with all the different sets of technologies that you see. I'm not going to actually talk about any single one of them, but that's actually one big change which is happening, which is going to shape how things happen in the future. The second, obviously, is what's happening to the consumer. Multiple people during the course of this conference and many other conferences have been talking about how the consumer is changing. Two things to highlight. The consumer, when she or he actually goes online, offline, yes, they do not think about what's offline, what's online. But what they do think about is the set of things that they are doing. And if you look at this page here, this slide up here, you find there are many activities in addition to shop that you see here. And that's the one big thing which is changing the future of shopping. Unlike in the past, where shopping was a discrete activity, what you find happening, and we see that every day, even today in India, shopping is not merely the act of going into a shop and purchasing something from a shop or a mall. It actually is a social activity. You're also searching at the same time, and therefore it's not only the mere act of shopping, but much more which is driving how the future of shopping is going to be. This obviously creates a lot of data, and people all across the world are using different technologies that we talked about earlier to really think about how the data can be used for the company's benefit. One big thing which has already started to come in the public domain and is going to occupy a lot of mind space thoughts going forward is not about the usage of data and technology, but the regulatory and the privacy issues that it throws up. Data by itself is great. However, if it's not properly regulated, it can actually lead to a bunch of things, and that's going to be one of the key determinants as to what the future of shopping, future of retail be in the next 10, 15 years. Historically, the store was not at the center. It was actually the product. You created the store to put the product so that you could serve the customer. Today, you find the store at the center. In the future, and I'm being very deliberate here, while people talk about the consumer being at the center, not many retailers really put the center, the customer, the consumer at the center. It's still a store, a website, an app at the center of many of the things. People are changing, but how quickly will that change happen is something which is going to determine how things happen in the future. Finally, we've always looked to the US, the UK, Western Europe for inspiration as to what needs to happen for India. That's no longer going to be true. Even today, China is more than US and UK combined if you look at, for example, online shopping. If you look at Japan, with its unique urbanization patterns and density, has more in common with urban India and has implication for what needs to be done rather than the West. The one thesis I would have is if you look at the left and the right, I think India is going to go more of the right towards the east, where shopping is not only about efficiency, but it's about a richer experience. And those who can deliver that at an economic model where they make money are going to be the winners. I'm not going to get into the debate about whether it's going to be the left, which is the Amazon, which is the quintessential e-retailer, or what you see in China as the winning model for India. That's going to be one of the discussions, debates that we are going to have with our panel just starting in a minute from now. So this was just to set the context of what we are going to be discussing in the panel. Technology changing, the consumer changing, moving from product to store to customer, learnings from different parts of the world. How does this all come together for the retail of 2030 is what this group is going to discuss, debate over the course of the next 35 minutes. There are only 3 rules of the game which we've discussed. Number 1, I know it's going to be close to lunch, So we are going to keep it short and snappy. Everybody of the panelists has agreed that it's not going to be more than 2 minutes for a single answer. Number two, the panelists will disagree without being disagreeable. So it's not everybody is going to agree with each other. There are going to be places where they disagree, but it is not going to be one of those TV debates with people, being obnoxious to each other, hopefully. We'll look to the audience's feedback towards that. And third, we have a script, a set of questions that we want to explore, but we are happy to invite any questions from the audience as long as it is related to the topic. Thank you. Anish, could I request you to have the panelists on board? So we have this, interesting panel from across different industries, across different heritages. We have Gaurav, with close to 100-year brand, and we have Lenskart and Ayesha, which are relatively younger brands. We have brands which have grown in India, which are the three of you, and then we have brands which have come from the West, not only in terms of Pizza Hut, but Samik, even with you, right? We have a predominance of retailers, but we also have people who keep the engine running, which is around real estate, and we have in terms of technology. Let me start with the oldest brand which is represented here, Gaurav. So the question to you is, Raymond's is close to a 100-year-old brand. I know over the last few years, you guys have been trying to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
What is the reinvention about, and what has been difficult?
So the brand is 92 years old, close to 100. I think the answers are kind of predictable, to be honest. I think change has paradox associated with it, and the biggest paradox is when you're a successful, iconic business and brand, and you know that change is nevertheless required, how do you hold on to what's good about you while you change to what you need to change to? And I think as a brand, we enjoy a tremendous heritage. The levels of trust in the product and the quality and the brand itself are very deep rooted. And we also know at the same time that the world around us is changing very fast. The brand needs to keep its feet on the ground and keep reaching out to the skies as far as its hands and head is concerned. So we're changing various aspects of the business. I don't want to talk too much about that. It'll end up becoming like a pitch for Raymond, and I don't want to do that. I would rather be more academic about the topic that we have. But I think the biggest challenge is holding on to what's good while you're racing ahead and trying to change things. I'll give you two examples. One is in the brand itself. The brand has a lot of gravitas. It's very deep rooted and has a lot of history. And as you become younger and more relevant to a younger audience, how do you not lose that gravitas? And that's been something that we've been grappling with. We think we have a formula and we're working towards it. The other is, it's a brand and a business which is created on very deep rooted, very well entrenched relationships. We have the largest franchising network in the lifestyle space in this country, one of the oldest and the largest. Not only is it one of the oldest and the largest, but it's also perhaps one of the most collaborative and mutually profitable set of relationships that have been created. And when you want to change, you have to carry a very large family with you, which has actually contributed to your success over the years and built you and made you what you are. And how to change without leaving anybody behind. So I think the theme is largely retaining what's good and at the same time changing at the right amount of pace and creating, that reinvention. So the journey goes on. And I'm trying to keep it within 2 minutes. Anish has warned me that not beyond 2 minutes.
So Jacqueline, you don't have that challenge, which is, you're a young brand. You don't have the challenge of carrying a huge legacy. However, you are a small brand today. The question is, 15 years down the line or in 2030, do you think all the large global brands are actually going to just, eat you up? Or do you think there's going to be space for brands like you?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in 2030, but we definitely have seen that if you go into a mall in Hong Kong, if you go into a mall in Delhi or in Düsseldorf or wherever in the world, largely the retailers are global retailers. There's very, very little chance for a small person who's like me. The rentals are high. For a homegrown brand to be able to afford that, it's difficult because the big ones, they don't have so much problems with even losing some money in the beginning. I do have a problem with that. The consumer also recognizes the big ones. I mean, we've seen what happened in Zara and H&M in India. All the local brands have a tough time to go against that. So what is going to happen in 2030, I don't know, but what I think what is really, really important is to create an emotional connect with your customer. And that's where a local brand has a bigger chance, because if Accessorize sells something all over the world, the chances that they're not so good with connecting to the Indian girl is quite high, because I'm sitting here, I see them every day, I see what the sensitivities are, and I try to put that into my brand. The second thing I think is very important for a small brand to be able to survive is to create an emotional connect with the customer. And I think that's for every retail the case, because it's not only about buying a product anymore. It's not about buying an earring. It's about having the experience, having an emotional connect. And I try to do this by not only concentrate on the product, but really try to give a thinking process to my customer. We started something called Project Girl Power, and we give stickers to all the people who come into the store, regardless whether they buy or not, and it has these quotes on it, and we ask the customer, which one is you? So there's funny ones like, I was meant to behave, but there were too many other options. There's something which says, this girl can. So it already creates an emotional connect, and I think that's very, very important, and I don't know whether the big retail players can do that. So
emotional connect, Unath, the ball's in your court. Can large retailers like you actually take the best of both, which is your learnings from all over the world, but at the same time connect that emotions? And the question I have is, learning from the world, emotional connect, as you think about going forward, what do you think is the way for you?
Well, first of all, I think I feel that with the consumer preferences changing and the preferences getting more and more specialized and super specialized, there will be a demand for more personalized products and specialized products. And I truly believe that concepts like what Jacqueline is building are not only here to stay, they will thrive. I've been giving her that confidence before the panel started, and I truly feel that the future belongs to actually catering to specific consumer needs in small segments.
So you're going to invest in her if she
I
offers
am going to
you a
be
chance.
investing my personal funds in her venture when she opens up investments. But truly, I believe that the future is all about understanding sub-segments of consumers. There are specialized needs. It is not a general need. There was a time and age when you would address 2 or 3 specific needs and you could build a large business. Not any longer, and that is something we're also seeing with ourselves. So I feel that over the next 5, 10, 20 years, super specialized players are going to come and really establish themselves. It is already happening in our part of the world. So if I just compare the food service category that was built in the West over the last 20, 30, 40 years, it's got built with perhaps 10 large players having thousands of shops all over the country and capturing 80% of the food service market. Whereas in our country, that has not been the case. In our country, we've had multiple number of smaller players with store counts of maybe 20 to 50 to 100 store count, but multiple number of those players, regional players, building scale. And actually today, about 70% of the organized food service market in India belongs to the smaller players who have eventually built scale, and they're addressing specific niche needs of the consumers. So as a brand for us, how is that relevant? I think we have to be nimble-footed. We have to adapt and adopt with the changing times.
And does being a MNC help or hinder?
Say it again?
Does being an MNC help or hinder? Because, whether it's a Lenskart or whether it's an Aisha, it's
Right.
easier for them to, just customize for India, while you guys will localization and global. How do you strike that balance?
I think I cannot comment about a broad brush MNC, but we are very fortunate because we address consumer needs of the local markets that we operate. So if the sauce on the pizza needs to be a little more spiced up in this part of the world as compared to Thailand where it has to be a little sweet, we adapt those. We don't have a global, so to say, recipe. So we are very nimble-footed that way. But being an MNC, we actually get to learn from other parts of the world. So what we are learning actually more from the Asian part of the world, especially from more dense cities, is to have smaller box formats, is to have speed, faster delivery times, is to have the radius of operation to be far smaller than you have in the western part of the world. So some of these learnings are coming in from developing markets and Asian markets and not necessarily from the West.
Rohit, so, two things that Jacqueline and Unnat have hinted at, directly or indirectly, is rentals, real estate, okay? Many people would say that brick and mortar real estate, basically the price is what is going to be the bottleneck, and the reason why it's going to move much more to online or a smaller format or a different format is because of lack of real estate. How do you see that changing in the short term and the long term? Is there a change or not?
Look, we've always believed really the biggest impetus to growth for all of the retail formats is going to be quality real estate, right? So if you look at how India sort of played out, over the past 5 years, there's about 4 million square feet of quality, grade A retail space which has come into the market. The demand really has been between 5 to 6 million, just from a retailer demand standpoint. And then you sort of contextualize this with what's happening rest of the world. Today, in India, there's about 75 million square feet of retail space, and if you break the 75 million up, there's probably 30 million of grade A. And grade A, I'm being very liberal about the word grade A. And if you look at what the per capita shopping center is, in India we are 1. In the US we are about 25, in China we are 14, in UK we are 15, so clearly there's a long way to go. And as a firm we have our feet on the ground and we projected what the retail real estate supply is going to be over the next 5 years. We believe over the next 5 years, you're going to see a CAGR of about 7 to 8%, which means about 4 million square feet hitting the market every year, and this is over the next top 10 cities. But from a supply standpoint, at least from a demand standpoint, from a retailer requirement standpoint, the organized retail demand for quality real estate is going to be about 30%. Right? So on the one hand, you have 7-8%, which is the supply hitting the market. For demand, it's going to be 30 to 40%, which is organized retail requirement. And in our view, rentals are just going to go higher, right? Because the delta between what is hitting the market versus what the requirement is so huge. I don't know if you're going to see any relaxation or lower in terms of what the rental numbers are going to be. I believe it's going to go higher. But having said that, I think if you look at the top 1 or 2 centers in every city, right, retailers are making money even paying that high rent.
That's changing.
Yeah, it's changing.
So one of the very interesting things I was just told by Amit is his most profitable store is actually in Agartala and Hojai in Northeast, and rental being a key driver. Just building on that, right? So we've heard from Rohit about what's going to happen in real estate, small brand, large brand, old brand. I mean, in some sense, you guys are the poster child of the omni-channel, right? online, offline, you guys have done a bunch of things. I'll ask you a provocative question. Right? So some of the research that BCG has done indicates that while omnichannel is a big buzzword, actually its characteristic by category is very different. In some categories, being truly omnichannel helps. In others, it actually doesn't make any difference. You've picked up on an interesting category. How is it that you guys have thought about online, offline, omnichannel? What led you to make those choices?
See, we were born online, and I think the first Series A and Series B pitches we did, it was all about how we can scale this business only online. But you know, when we saw that 100,000 people are coming to the website every day on an eyewear website, they won't come for window shopping, right? And we had a conversion rate of 3 to 4%. So we were assuming, where are these 96% people going? And we can spend X amount of money on the internet to get these consumers, and there will be customer acquisition costs. But at the end of the day, we have to bring some sense to the business. So we had this very interesting thing on our website where we used to chat with consumers, and we started reading these chats where we understood consumers want touch and feel, and consumers want to also for our category also need eye power. So we started thinking that how can we take this business forward, and how can we reach consumers, getting this accessibility to them. And so we started a home model, and we started the offline model, and there was no data or omni-channel which buzzword which led to this, but it was more of consumers who wanted it, who wanted this accessibility to happen. And with the same amount of expenses probably done in customer acquisition cost, our conversion rate was much higher, to the tune of 12-13% from the same traffic. So we could be poster boys in here, but it was more of a consumer demand, and might be category specific, but overall in a scenario, as Jacqueline was saying, that there's a brand loyalty and affinity, and the cost per customer will turn into cost per engagement in the due course, or the life cycle of the consumer. We really need to build whatever channels is possible where consumers can come, and we cannot just stick to one. So that was the notion about this entire episode.
The other flip side, so you talked about how you used some of this data. There is a belief that you guys actually use and analyze a lot of data for different decisions. What has made it easy? What has made it difficult? What are some thoughts that come from not only an analysis side, but also from a privacy regulatory side? How do you see that shaping out? And then, Shamika, I'd like you to also comment on the same.
Sure. So, like I'll give you a simple example. We used to do business development until now. When you meet people, business development is all about population in a catchment, or the traffic flowing there. Like how data would help us is, we'll go to a particular catchment and we'll check how many people are using Facebook in that particular catchment.
Interesting.
And how many, we'll try to study the Google Maps traffic pattern instead of usual footfall counters in that particular catchment. To give data a platform to use to make better decisions. If you consider a store, the biggest risk everybody runs today is on inventory, right? And this is the most complex to solve. With data, we'll be able to solve not only merchandising, but like how digital or digital wall would come in picture. We really don't need so much inventory at the store, and we can personalize according to the consumer. Of course, getting the touch and feel also. So all this amalgamation of online, offline will happen, and data will play a big role. Of course, there will be privacy thing which will carve out, and overall, overall, I think it will still take 3-4 years where there will be issues popping up, and consumer would want their data to be private, because there might be sharing of data between one store to other, where everybody is using the Aadhaar to get out some information about their buying habits. But in terms of data, people are even are collecting garbage today to know the pattern of the consumption which is happening in homes, right? So data is in a very nascent phase right now, where we are collecting right now. Consumption will happen in the due course, and then I think privacy will come in 5 years down the line.
Shamik.
So, look, we firmly believe is that data is the new currency. But the most important thing is you got to make the data into an information, and then you got to use the information to drive your business. Otherwise, data is as good as jewelry in a locker, like a data in a data warehouse. You do nothing with it, correct? And I think that is important. So all what the panelists have said, starting with Jacqueline, does a small organization have the wherewithal to become large tomorrow, and will it stand? And I think she brought about a very good point. It is about organizations which will own the customer will always be relevant and will stay. It's not about how small or big you are. Look at Microsoft. It started from a garage. It's the top 5 brands in the world for 2 decades, 20 years, and we have still survived, right? Same with Apple, etc. But it's about owning the customer, bringing a product which is of relevance at that particular amount of time. And in today's era, where we are talking about digital disruption, how quickly can you actually adopt technology? It's about bringing technology into the center. Is your business around technology? Think of Uber, correct?
So you are saying technology at the center and not the customer at the center?
The technology will drive, see, from a business perspective, you have the customer as the center. But having by saying, we are customer focused. Indian companies have been talking about customer focus for so many years. Sorry to be disruptive out here. In our definition, that customer focus is about kast se mar. You take a product, you ask for service, you ask for warranty, nobody responds. But that's where technology comes in, is when you've put the customer at the heart of your business, is the technology enabling it. Everybody today talks about social. How many people actually sit back and say, what are my consumers saying there, and what am I doing about it?
So
that's where I say bring technology back
It's getting the right warm-up now. I think Amit has a different point of view, and Gaurav also seems to be, yeah.
So
okay.
Hello. So coming back to the topic of how the stores would look like, and I was very curious when I heard this topic, and when I saw Raymond's and Pizza Hut on the panel, I'm really curious to know that what will it look like in 2030? How will the stores feel like? And I was talking to Abhik a while back. That probably, since technology is so easy to copy paste, like if somebody is doing it, and like Microsoft would be a pioneer, and then they would be giving it to everybody else. So I think there will be like everybody will be using the same thing in the next 7-8 years.
So what's going to be the differentiator?
So as I was telling
I'll answer that. The differentiator is, you have a good point. It's so simple to copy. The differentiator will come in the culture and the DNA of an organization. Because you can use the same technology in different ways, right? Some organizations have a service culture. Let's look at Singapore Airlines. Why is Singapore Airlines the best airlines in the world consistently? Their whole culture is about service. I'll give you an example. We all tweet, we all go LinkedIn. But have any of us noticed how much does Mr. Anand Mahindra tweet? That is the culture. Every CEO out there talks about tweeting. I must know what the customer is saying. I must know the consumer thing. But that gentleman actually goes and tweets there, shares his view, looks at consumer experience in doing it. Same technology, but it's the culture and the DNA and how you adopt it and then deploy it. I think that's where the differentiation will be.
Okay, so Gaurav, you...
Yeah, I think I just wanted to re-emphasize the point, the theme that we were inadvertently moving towards, customer versus technology, and it's really, I think it's critical. There is a hurricane, Irma equivalent or worse, of technology around us. There's so much of it. And I think it's critical that you keep the customer at the center. and use technology very judiciously. Buy it only as much as you believe can service your main objective, which is to service the customer.
Correct.
And there are various examples of people, so we were talking about stores of the future success. Inditex is by far in our industry the most sustainable and most noteworthy example of success. $21 billion, 13% profit, still growing at 12 to 13%. It's absolutely remarkable. Now you might say they're not online. There is very limited evidence of any very high profile digital activity, so-called digital activity by Inditex. But the fact is that Inditex is perhaps one of the best users of technology, one of the earliest users of technology. But technology is a means to an end. They've chosen technology, they've embraced technology at the right point in time, used it very effectively. And as Samik was rightly saying, it is about making it a culture in your organization, but the key thing is to make it deliver for the consumer. And not go overboard and say that, okay, fine, you have to do technology for the sake of technology. And they have various examples, whether it is their supply chain, whether it is, data gathering from the stores and how they link the front end to the back end. Simple. And so that's point one. The second point, I want to reiterate again what Samik is saying. The fact is that everybody knows what Inditex does. It's fast fashion, and there is a formula. And ask anybody who's in the retail business, they can write the formula of Inditex down. Hardly anybody has been able to duplicate that. So that is where the culture and the quality of implementation and persistence and investment comes into play.
Okay, so I'm just going to build on the the theme about the experience, technology, customer all coming together. And Jacqueline, when we were talking inside, you were talking about some store experience which would be thrilling, and some store experience which would be scary. Just about the extent of personalization and how it can be good and bad. Do you want to just share your thoughts about that?
Yeah, maybe I'm a little old, but for me it's scary when the idea of going into a store, and because I booked a trip to Bali on Make My Trip, and the Zara store executive comes to me and says, "Oh, madam, you're going to Bali, do you want to buy a bikini?" That would be an absolutely horrifying moment for me. I would not like it. The question, when I was listening to all of you guys is, in 2030, are we going to be totally numb to the fact that everybody knows everything about us? Or is it going to turn at one point back to, hey guys, I don't want you to know everything, and I want my privacy, and I hope it's going to go that way. Everybody can choose for themselves, but there has to be a little bit of, a personal experience which stays personal. It's not like, everybody can access my data, where I'm going, what size I'm wearing, how old I am, what my daughter is wearing, etc., etc. And the other thing, which has nothing to do with this, but I think a lot of this is done by very, very busy men who don't like shopping. Because, fun of the shopping is you go with your friend, you go alone, you
exploring,
browse through the stores. You don't want to go onto a computer screen there also and say, what can I buy? No, I want to go and explore. My biggest joy of shopping is on a flea market. And I promise you there is no data there. And I think if you have a little time at hand and if you like shopping, I think that's it's fun. It's not about how do I do it most efficiently. And for example, my brand sells small ticket items. So I don't think that anybody is going to go onto a website and check what earrings does Ayesha have, and then take the trip to the mall and buy that earring. I think that happens also, obviously, but what is more fun, you go with your girlfriends, you had a coffee, you go to the PVR, you have some time, and you go into the store, and everybody says, "Oh my God, that's so cute."
Yeah. So, obviously, there are going to be both types of shopping which are going to be there, right?
Yeah, but we shouldn't forget this one.
Yeah. So the question I have, Unat, and I'll take first your view, is I'd put up that slide which said, the customer of the West, and obviously I'm stereotyping, the model is much more about shop efficiently, make life easier, and therefore everything that comes associated with that. Versus if you look at the East, and even if you look at, for example, the Alibaba model, it's about exploring, getting your hands dirty, flea market on the web, for the lack of a better word. What's your view in terms of what you have seen in your category? Is it going to be more exploration, or is it going to be, I enter Pizza Hut, I know exactly what I want, and therefore that's what I want?
I think it's going to be the latter. It's going to be, so I see a generation of new consumers coming into our category where we are seeing that they don't like too much of interaction, especially with human beings across the counter. Now, Pizza Hut was built on the foundation. For the first 10 years, we built on the foundation of excellent, human interaction, great table service, Bollywood dances, balloon artwork, and stuff like that. We see, so there is a set of consumers who continue to appreciate that in today's times, but the new generation is coming in, and people are finding easier ways to complete the tasks that they have to do in life. And especially in the case of pizzas, we are seeing that earlier, so we have a tremendous online business, and the work that we have done over the last 2 or 3 years gives us insights of how people are looking at it. So basically, lesser number of steps, lesser number of questions, lesser number of hurdles is leading to more conversion levels. And we are seeing that people are getting more and more impatient. So the day is not far when I would love to order. I would like to push one button and get my pizza delivered. I don't want to have any human interaction.
Interesting.
That is certainly going to happen. So I strongly feel...
And Rohit, as you guys look at where to invest in real estate and what kind of real estate to create, are you also creating pathways in real estate which favor less interaction, less experience, and more just get it done and move on?
Not at all.
Interesting.
We are really, I think, at the end of the day, we're creating these social fabrics, right, where retail is one part of it. Very clearly in our heads, at least, the traditional anchor is no longer the traditional anchor, right? People are not coming to the shopping mall because there's the H&M store there, right? People are coming to the shopping mall in terms of priority, right, to dine, then to obviously go for entertainment, and then lastly to shop. So the priority is clearly changed. And if you ask me what our anchors in all of our shopping centers are, it's really the spaces which we are creating, right? It's the, like for example in Bangalore, we have this huge sky deck where we program events on the weekends, on weekdays. That's new, that's interesting for a customer to come. So clearly, we are creating spaces which we believe are social and where retail is not up in the priority list. We are curators at the end of the day, right? Depending on what the customer wants, and what the customer wants today from a retail mix is going to be very different from what he wants 5 years down the line. But having said that, we are curators and we need to adapt to what the customer wants.
Okay.
But clearly in terms of priority, it's no longer retail.
Okay, great. So we have literally 3 minutes. I'm just going to ask 1 or 2 questions from the audience, but I have 3 rapid fire questions, yes or no answers on the same, right? Customer experience or technology? Those who vote for customer experience. Okay. Big city India, small city India, which is going to be the bigger driver of growth by 2030? Smaller city, bigger city. Which do you think is going to be the bigger opportunity for your business?
Bigger.
Okay, 1 million plus, 1 million minus.
1 million plus.
1 million plus, 1 million plus, 1 million plus. Both. Interesting. And the last and final question, online, offline, if you had to choose one and only one, which one?
I'm going to say offline because that's the only thing we do.
Online.
Who says offline?
Offline because of my heart.
Okay. Online? 1, 2. Okay. Thank you. We'll have One question from the audience. Thank you for the panel. I think you guys were, in all my years at IRF, this is the only time that I have seen people actually keep it short. One question.
Yeah.
Hi. My question is pertaining to the inventory part, and especially in the fashion retailing ecosystem. In the last 20, 30 years, the retailing has seen a lot of change in India. Distribution-led MBOs to EBOs to LFRs to e-commerce to whatnot. Yeah. But still, the inventory carried in the ecosystem today, still in India, is about, let's say, 5-6 months. Only 2 inventory rotation happen. No method of retailing, etc., has been able to solve.
Can we keep the question short?
Yeah. So, why so much difference in the inventory rotation in India compared to, let's say, what a lot of people have achieved in Western world?
Amit, do you want to take that?
So Rajul, I feel in 2030, inventory will be replaced by screens. Trial room will be replaced by augmented reality. The sales people will be replaced by bots. And there will be a news in the newspaper that somebody has opened a shop with humans there. So that will be a new experience and everybody will go there.
But
Thank
I
you.
can give a one-line answer. Use technology, it can be done. We can show it to you.
Okay, thank you for the panel.